Arrogant woman humiliated a black waitress. Then her billionaire husband walked in. In a luxurious restaurant glittering with chandeliers and golden light, a scene unfolded that no one present would ever forget. A black waitress, calm and dignified in her crisp white uniform, was humiliated by a woman who thought her skin color defined her worth. The woman's anger was loud enough to silence the entire room. Her words cut deeper than knives, her actions dripping with entitlement. But what she didn't know, what would change everything, was that the man watching from across the hall wasn't just another wealthy guest. He was her own husband, a billionaire whose silence was more dangerous than her rage. And what followed became the talk of the city. The restaurant was one of New York's finest, an old marble palace turned into a symbol of elite privilege. Every evening, it hosted the city's richest, where the sound of violins played softly against the clinking of crystal glasses. Among the waitstaff was Amara, a young woman with quiet grace and unbreakable patience. She had been raised by her grandmother, who always told her, "Dignity is the crown they can never take from you." Amara worked 2 jobs, saving to finish her degree in architecture. She moved through the tables with effortless composure, her smile both gentle and distant. She had learned that in a world where her presence was often questioned, silence could be her shield. That evening, the restaurant was hosting an exclusive charity gala for education, ironically, the very thing Amara dreamed of pursuing. Among the attendees was Evelyn Monroe, the wife of one of the city's most powerful businessmen. Dressed in pearls and pride, Evelyn carried herself like the world owed her something. Every waiter she passed received the same dismissive glance, a look that said, "You serve, I own." When Evelyn called for Amara, her tone was sharp, her gestures impatient. She didn't see a person, only a servant. But across the room, her husband, Richard Monroe, was watching quietly, studying every move with an unreadable expression. Evelyn had been drinking more than usual that night, basking in the attention of her wealthy friends. Her laughter echoed across the hall as she complained about incompetent staff. When Amara approached their table to take another order, Evelyn's irritation flared. Amara carefully set down a tray of coffee cups, her hands steady. But a small drop spilled onto the white tablecloth. Evelyn's gasp was theatrical, meant for an audience. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Her voice rose, slicing through the murmurs of the crowd. "How difficult is it to serve coffee properly?" she sneered, grabbing Amara's sleeve as if to pull her forward. The sound of fabric tearing cut through the silence. Gasps spread across the room. The waitress's uniform ripped at the shoulder, revealing the rough mark of Evelyn's grip. Amara didn't move, her eyes lowered, her hands trembling only slightly. She said nothing because she knew words could be twisted, and dignity couldn't be bought back once stolen. Evelyn's friends smirked behind their glasses. Some looked away, others pretended not to notice. The orchestra stopped playing. The air grew thick with discomfort, and still Richard Monroe sat, his eyes fixed on his wife. The calmness in his face wasn't ignorance, it was calculation. Because Amara wasn't just any waitress. Months ago, Richard had met her at a community fundraiser his company supported. He remembered her passion, her intelligence, her humility. He had offered her a scholarship, quietly, without ever mentioning it to his wife. She was supposed to start her university studies the following month, funded entirely by the Monroe Foundation. Now, seeing his wife's cruelty toward her, something inside him shifted. The restaurant manager rushed forward, apologizing to Evelyn and offering to replace the coffee. Evelyn waved him off, turning back to her table as if nothing had happened. But Richard stood, his chair scraping the floor in a sound that echoed like thunder. All eyes turned toward him. He walked slowly to Amara, his presence commanding silence. Without a word, he removed his jacket and placed it gently over her torn shoulder. Then he turned to his wife. The look in his eyes was colder than any anger. It wasn't rage, it was disappointment, the kind that speaks volumes. He didn't need to raise his voice. Everyone heard him when he said, "You just humiliated the very woman whose education you sponsored tonight. The same woman whose story you applauded in your speech." Evelyn froze. Her mouth opened, but no words came. The guests stared in disbelief. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as realization dawned. Amara's scholarship had been the highlight of the gala, an example of the Monroe family's commitment to equality, and Evelyn had just torn that illusion apart. Richard turned away, addressing the room. "This is what hypocrisy looks like," he said. "We build charities to hide our sins, but tonight, the mask falls." The silence was deafening. Evelyn left the restaurant that night, her face pale, her reputation shattered. Photos of the incident surfaced within hours, taken by guests who couldn't look away. The story made headlines across social media. Charity gala turns ugly. Racism at the top table. But Amara didn't seek revenge. She didn't give interviews or respond to reporters. She continued her work quietly, though Richard ensured she received her scholarship and more, a full sponsorship for her education abroad. Months later, Amara graduated at the top of her class. Her designs featured in an architectural exhibition titled Rebuilding Dignity. Her story became a symbol of strength, not for her pain, but for her grace in the face of cruelty. As for Evelyn, she lived with the consequences of that night. Her husband filed for separation, and her social circle quietly turned away. But the deeper punishment was knowing that her arrogance had destroyed not just her image, but her own reflection. Years later, when Amara stood on stage giving a speech about perseverance, she ended with a line that resonated with millions watching online. "You can tear fabric, but not integrity. You can humiliate a person, but not their worth. Racism doesn't expose others. It exposes the one who carries it." The audience rose to their feet in silence before applause erupted, a standing ovation not for revenge, but for resilience. And as the lights dimmed, one question lingered in every heart. How many more stories like Amara's will it take before we finally see beyond color?